And good day, everybody, and welcome to this version of High Heat. Nice to have with us, Liberty Mutual, of course. Our good buddies are Moses and Mitch. Nice to have with us here today. Heading to Memorial Day weekend, keep our focus on Boston baseball. That wonderful face in front of you is the great Howie Rose. Mato. Wrong. What is that idea? And he said,
we're coming up on the anniversary of that, too.
That's right. Memorial Day. We're not too
May 27th.
Yeah, how are you, Howie? Good to hear from you today, okay,
I'm
pal?
doing great, old friend. How are you?
All right, I feel a little more optimistic. You know, this health document and everything else, and the stadiums in certain states. I don't want to get too carried away yet. We got a long way to go, but a little more optimistic that we'll see some baseball summertime. You and I talked 3 weeks ago. Do you feel a little differently now than maybe you did then? Let me hear.
Well, I'd say cautiously optimistic because I think we're in a period right now where the next 2 weeks or so are going to be very much telling. Because as states have started to open up over the last week or 10 days, now we're going to have to step back and see what the ramifications of that will be. And I know things get skewed because if testing increases, you're obviously going to get more positives. But if there's no dramatic upward spike in cases or sadly deaths, then perhaps that will continue to empower various governors to allow their respective states' teams to play. Now, we got that ruling from Governor Cuomo in New York yesterday that he's on board with the Mets and Yankees playing at Citi Field and Yankee Stadium, respectively. So that's very encouraging in and of itself. But as we all know from everything that we've read and learned and heard, there are just so many things that have to fall into place for this to work. And Joel Sherman referred to it in the Post as threading the needle. You've got to do some very careful millinery work to make this thing happen.
Agreed, but step in the right direction. How about you now with an 82 games season? You and I discussed this a few weeks ago. You would have taken 30 games. So 82 games to you is okay.
It's fine.
Over in the other division, a little less travel. I'm okay with it. If 82 is what it is, I'm okay with it. What you think? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm deliriously okay with it, Chris, because I think this year is going to go down like one unlike any other that we've experienced in sports, certainly in our lifetimes. And the understanding will be eternal that 2020 was a different kind of season in sports. So what's the difference if they play 40, 80, 100, 120? We are going to be so overjoyed, whatever the risks and however different it looks, to have baseball back, that to me, any pitch that we get this year is gravy. And if you want to tell me that 80 or 82 games, which is the length, by the way, of an entire NHL or NBA season, is too little, I would say, come on, lighten up, have fun. This is the year to experiment. This is the year, frankly, to celebrate, getting our lives and our games back to whatever extent we can. And however many games, to me, is immaterial. Let's just get it going and hope for the best. And
it's going to be more of a sprint than a marathon. You're from the broadcast of the player to that long book. Each got a little chapter, 162. It'd be a little different feel with 82. 1 8-9 game, which you really behind the eight ball without a ton of games to make up. But we'll do something different. Everybody always sometimes complains about the length of the season. Now they won't be able to complain. It's only 8 games season. So how about that? Go ahead.
Well, the guys who will complain will be the players and the fans and the women, of course. I say guys, not only them, but those who represent one way or the other a team that finishes a game out after 82 games, or somehow misses for other reasons that might have been mitigated by a longer season. It's just going to be one of those years where you say, tough, deal with it. We got baseball back. Let's revel in it. Let's throw our arms around it and hope that however this season transpires, assuming we have one, that 2021 is a lot more akin to a normal season as we've known it for all these years.
All right, how about experimentation? Howie, is there anything you don't like?
Chris, I'm on board with just about anything, with the exception of robotic umps, because, and I don't think that's going to happen anyway this year, but from all indications where it was used, remember Frank Viola was adamantly opposed to it, dealing with what he did in the Atlantic League last year. It seems to have a lot of glitches that need to be worked out before you could even take a chance on using it. But apart from that, anything you want to do, the universal DH, which I think is inevitable for the long haul anyway. I think there appears now to be an inevitability to the designated hitter in the National League. I don't love it, but I'm on board with it for a lot of reasons. But I think you want to put a runner on second base in extra innings, go for it. See how it works. 7-inning doubleheaders would be the mechanism towards increasing the number of games to whatever the peak number is that they'll be able to squeeze in. I just think that anything goes this year. And I would actually not only be curious to see how it works, I'd be excited to see how it works. Because I think that's the spirit of this season.
100%, and then maybe you find something you like and you add it down the road. How about you doing ball games without fans in the ballpark? How's a broadcaster? A different vibe. I mean, let's face it, we're not going to have fans, at least for the foreseeable future, in a ballpark. And the announcers are going to have to create a little energy by themselves without 40,000 people at Citi Field. Have you thought about that for a while? Let me hear.
I've thought about it a lot. That's a great point, Chris, because I can't sit here now, having not done it yet, and tell you exactly how I think it's going to play out. I've heard Joe Buck talk about the need, at least to him, of importing some canned crowd noise, which I certainly understand from a broadcaster's perspective. I think there's another thing that plays into it for me. And I don't want to sound condescending by saying that I think maybe you have to be a broadcaster to really understand it. But for me personally, it would be a huge advantage to be at the ballpark, even if the team is on the road, because I don't think the broadcaster is going to travel. I think that's pretty much a given. We're going to be doing it off of a monitor, at least when our teams are on the road. Yep. And for me, rather than do it in an enclosed studio at a radio station, I would prefer to do it in our booth at our ballpark, Citi Field. We'll have the windows open. The aesthetics, this is what I meant by maybe you just have to kind of be in this racket to understand how important this is. The aesthetics of having the ballpark, a beautiful baseball diamond right in front of me, even if the stands are empty. To me, that lifts your adrenaline to another level, apart from what it would be sitting in a studio. So to me, that's an important factor. Get me into the ballpark, as long as the proper precautions and disinfectant precautions have been taken.
All right, and did you watch the SNY thing with the Mets and the Orioles last week when they did the 7 games? Did you see that?
Well, no. I'm down in Florida, so I don't have access to it. But if they were replaying the 69 series, I think I can recite chapter and verse on just about every play anyway.
Well, you know what was interesting? I did not realize this. In the post-game after Game 5, Lindsey Nelson obviously downstairs, and shocked how the Mets were annoyed at the Orioles for trash talking. I guess at the end of the regular season, when the Orioles clinched, they didn't know who they couldn't pronounce Rod Gaspar's name right. Tommy Agee said they did more talking. When are they going to start playing? Mm-hmm. Very surprised. The Orioles, which I guess was the mode in 69 because the Mets are an expansion team, such a laughable team, how the Mets were supposed to be good. But the Mets really were taken aback by how the Orioles really played tough with them with the trash talk. I wasn't sure if you were aware of that.
Oh, very aware. You know what? Oh, very much so. And, a lot of that was before the series started, where it was Frank Robinson who said, bring on Ron Gaspar, R-O-N. Well, his name was Rod Gaspar. But apart from that, in the first game, which the Orioles won 4-1, Don Buford leads off with a home run. And as he's rounding second base, he says to Buddy Harrelson, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, really?
And, yeah. And Buddy said, hey, this is game 1. You ain't seen nothing either. And the Orioles would go on to win that game. And it was the last game they'd win in 1969. And the Mets used that for motivation.
Wasn't aware. Howie, we're going to get you back with us here once the season. We'll get a season, and you'll be behind the booth, and I'll make sure I listen with the happy recaps.
That's Murph's bet.
Put it in the books, baby. Put it in the books. Always a pleasure, Harry. Keep in touch. Thanks so much here today.
All right, Chris. Good speaking to you. Stay well.
You got it, Mr. Rose. Of course, with a excellent little high heat today, brought to you by Liberty Mutual. Moses, and of course, between we'll see in a couple days. Stay healthy here on the MLB Network. Adios.